Hi everyone, I'm Donna Boyd and I'm one of the co-organisers at ProductTank Perth, and we're really lucky today because we have Michelle Dickinson from Nanogirl Labs here to celebrate World Product Day with us. So I first heard about Michelle last year at West Tech Fest, and she really stood out for me because I have a little boy and she did an amazing experiment on stage, which I'm hoping she might have a few today. And she's very passionate about STEM education and education for children, particularly in science. She has done a lot during this COVID time. I know that when I was attempting to work from home with my son, we had a moment to look forward to with Nanogirl. And she just really inspired us to try something a little bit different and do something a little bit more interactive. Anyway, enough from me. So I would like to get Michelle to join us here today for our Ask Me Anything session.
Hi Donna, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm so good, thank you for inviting me. And I wish I was in Perth with you, but I'm not, sadly. But I'm in a rainy Auckland, New Zealand instead.
Well, you're actually not missing much because the weather isn't that great here at the moment. I know I shouldn't mention weather, but it's pretty poor. So maybe you can come and join us when the weather gets a little bit better.
I'd love to.
All right, so I guess, Michelle, what would be really useful for some of the people that are online today is just to hear a little bit more about you. So I know about you because I'm a bit of a fangirl and I've watched lots of Nanogirl Labs videos with my son. He's made me promise that we'll do more this weekend, but it would just be great to hear a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So my name is Michelle and I'm an engineer by training. I have a PhD in nanotechnology and I spent the past 20 years working across the world for some of the large multinational companies like Apple and IBM and Intel, helping to create and break tiny things that make your devices smaller and smarter. And so I've been really lucky to be a woman in engineering in the tech space. And then I went to academia because I wanted to give back and teach and help the next generation come through. And I'm really passionate about how do we get more people to build more things and more solutions, because if you've met scientists and you've met engineers, a lot of them fit a certain demographic of person. And I want to make sure that everybody thinks and knows that they can be a creator, not just a consumer of technology. So I'm now passionate and I left academia to set up an educational and social enterprise to help everybody feel confident around these new technology and engineering and sort of computer type of fields, and help everybody learn together in a hands-on and fun way. So that's what I do. That's Nanogirl Labs. And I did that because I was a kid who wasn't very good at school, and it took me a long time to realize that you don't have to necessarily be good at reading and writing to be good at stuff. And I learned later on in life that I'm a good builder of things, and that's how my brain works. So I want to make sure kids who maybe struggle with their reading and writing or struggle with understanding how what they're learning at school applies to real life actually is really useful through making fun things, mostly out of rubbish. We'll come to that. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, we were talking about that just before we started this call, how my living room is now covered in cardboard and I can't really get rid of it because my son loves it too much. So we have to think of some clever design ideas to try and hide that one.
But it's better than being filled with plastic toys that you'd probably only use one. So that was our goal, to help kids make new toys out of rubbish.
I'm already thinking about how I can turn it into compost. So maybe that'll be our next experiment. All right, let's crack on with some of the questions. So far, we've got quite a few. We've got 21 questions, which is great. The first one that's the most voted is, what advice do you have for budding entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so my advice is, number one, find some mentors. As a budding entrepreneur, it's all about taking your concept and your idea out to the world. And that's great. But do you know what? There are people who have done this before you who are much smarter and have made so many mistakes that they don't want you to make. So get good mentorship. Really figure out what your value proposition is, because great ideas are amazing, but who would buy it? What would they do with it? And what is the value to the world? And it's not necessarily about financial gain. Sometimes we're an impact motivated company. So for us, we're all about how much impact can we make while still remaining profitable, but our profits may be smaller because we obviously contribute things to impact. So what are your value propositions? And find some good people around you to help guide you.
Actually, that really shone through from your Nanogirl Labs platform. So I loved the idea of donating a subscription to people who couldn't afford it. So it was an extra motivation for me to really purchase it and explore that with my son.
Yeah, and we measure those impact metrics. So for every subscription to Nanogirl Labs that we sold, we donated one to a family that couldn't afford it. And we realized that some families who couldn't afford it also don't have digital access. And so sometimes it's not a one-for-one directly. We had to curate systems. So there are kids and families who don't have any internet at home. And so we created brochures and packages and workbooks that went out into free donated food packages so that they could still use the experiments in a way that they could not need the internet to do it. And so it's not always about a direct one-for-one. It's making sure that your value proposition is education for all, and we'll make sure we deliver it to you in the way that works for you.
I like that. I like how you thought about the different segments and how you can really get more reach out of how you would approach those segments differently.
And we learned that from Tom Shoes, because Tom Shoes used to do a one-for-one, and then there were people going, we don't need shoes, we need other things. Is there a way that you can use that money you would have spent on shoes to actually give us what we need right now, which might be running water or more essentials? And so we've learned from other people's experiences in this.
I think that's a really good point. It's really important to learn. I think we can get lost in how much in love we are with our own ideas or the solutions that we come up with, that we forget that people have learned so many things before. Mm-hmm. Now, I have another question, which is a little bit of a pivot, but I'm really interested to hear about it. What was it like with Jacinda? So I know that she's really big right now. We keep seeing all the articles about how she's doing the right things and her style of leadership. So just love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so Jacinda, Prime Minister of New Zealand, is an incredible leader through the COVID crisis for many reasons. Number one, she's a great communicator. Number two, she's highly empathetic. And so I think we've really seen different leadership styles around crisis management, especially around COVID. And what's been great about what Jacinda has done is she's given us clarity. So in New Zealand, it was really clear to us what was going to happen. She came up with a 4-level alert system early on. And she said, when we move alerts, this is what's going to happen at each alert, and this is what you need to prepare for. So while we saw the UK buying toilet roll, and even in Australia, you guys were buying a lot of toilet roll, and we didn't do that here because she was very clear that even at alert level 4, supermarkets will be open. We're going to make sure that there's enough for everybody. You don't need to panic buy. These are going to be the rules. And I think that style of leadership has been really important. One of the things that Jacinda asked me to do was a press conference with her 4 children. And I really like the style of leadership that says everybody's included and everybody's here and everybody's welcome. And so we held a press conference just for children, where children asked us questions about COVID and how it affected them. And there aren't many leaders that I have seen do that. And I think that's really important. So Jacinda has been great. You know, New Zealand's now out of lockdown. We're sort of really feeling privileged in that position, and our schools are open and life seems quite normal right now. And obviously social distancing is still important. But when we look at countries that haven't, you know, had this style of leadership, the US and the UK, for example, it's quite hard to watch some of the challenges around them still being in lockdown because they still have transmission. Whereas in New Zealand, we locked down early, we locked down hard. We had a leader who said, this is why we're doing it, and really communicated and transparent. Every day we had a 1 p.m. meeting with the Prime Minister online and the head of the Ministry of Health saying, here's our data, here's who's infected, here's where they've come from, here's who's in hospital. And having that transparency of data, I think, was really important for New Zealanders to know where we were and what was coming up. So yeah, feeling very lucky right now.
Yeah, it was really great to watch. So I just did a little bit of recap on YouTube today. I thought I'll have a look at Michelle Dickinson. And I started off looking at the Jacinda video with my son. And then I realized the wealth of Michelle Dickinson that is actually on YouTube. And it gave me a real insight to some of the values and everything that you have. So I think there's some questions relating to this. And I know I have personal questions on this, but the whole Nanogirl, the persona you created, the nerves you had. It would be great to hear a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, so Nanogirl came from my passion as an academic, as an engineer, to see more diversity in that space. And the research shows that children make up their mind about science by the age of 12. So I knew if I wanted to make a positive impact in diversity, it had to be in primary schools. I had to be talking to kids who are just forming their relationship with science and just starting to get their stereotypes around, scientists are men with lab coats, and, pilots are men, and just surgeons are men. Like we was collecting data on who does this job, and it became very clear to us around the ages of 8 or 9, children really set their stereotypes and then apply it to themselves. So I was going into primary schools talking about being a nanotechnologist and what I do, and how I can build superpowers with science, because we can make invisibility cloaks, we can make all of these cool things with nanotech. And they said, oh, well, you're a bit like Iron Man, because, he builds stuff, and Batman, because he has his Batcave and he builds superpowers. And I was like, yeah, I'm just like those superheroes for sure. And they said, well, then you're going to need a superhero name. And I'm like, totally, 8-year-old kids, of course I do. I'm like, I don't know how you do that though. And they said, we'll name you. And so they named me Nanogirl because I was a nanotechnologist and I was female, and it sort of stuck. And that's sort of been the premise of how we help kids co-create our content and help educate them. And so our whole premise is around building superpowers. And Nanogirl stuck. And what was really interesting is I was asked to do a public talk, and I was very nervous, and I hadn't done that sort of thing before. And I went to an acting coach and I said, actually, I'm petrified and I think I'm going to be sick on stage. And they said, what we do is we tell actors to act a character. So why don't you come up with a character who you wished you would be on stage, and you act out that person. And so I thought, oh, I've got this name Nanogirl now that the kids like. And so I created this persona Nanogirl around somebody who is very opposite to me. They're very confident, they're very extroverted, and all of these things. And I said, okay, I'm gonna play to this character on stage, and it became my stage presence. And I gave it the name of Nanogirl from the kids' confidence in me, and it sort of stuck. And so I was a terrible presenter. I was terrible at public speaking, and then I just kept practicing, and it became a bit of a career of mine, doing public talks, and it's very curated, and it's a way that myself as a natural introvert can build the confidence to go on stage as a persona to communicate the message that I like to communicate, and then come home and be totally back to boring old me.
I think it's great. Like I think many people who might be on here maybe know me as an extrovert, but actually this terrifies me. So I find it a lot easier in COVID because I can hide behind a camera and wear no shoes. And I think a lot of people, if I was to challenge people now, I'd say now is the time to give it a whirl at public speaking, and maybe get a chance to do it in person when we all can and feel more confident in that. And it's a great tip saying create a persona. So I've dyed my hair red, so maybe that'll help me with my persona, Fiery Donna, something like that, who knows?
and everybody has a different way. So I have a YouTube video called How to Rock the Stage, and I presented it with an extrovert. And it's how two people who are so different may seem the same on stage, but our journey to getting there is couldn't be more different. And I wanted to co-present the pathway to public speaking from very different perspectives, because there's going to be people in the middle. There's going to be people who pick something from theirs and something from mine and put it together. There is no right way to become a public speaker. The only thing I suggest is practice. So people probably don't realize how practiced public speakers actually are. They don't just turn up and go, oh, I'm going to talk about this today. Some do, but they're not the best speakers. Usually there's a lot of work in the background. And so knowing the little tricks and tips, I wanted to put that out there for free, because it's been a long journey for me. And so again, learning from my mistakes and my wisdom in one YouTube video hopefully will help people not have to make the same ones again.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to have a little search on YouTube for some of your historical content. You can see your growth as the years go on, and it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and like a concert pianist, they never turn up and just play, at a concert. They practice, and they would have been a bit scratchy to start with, and as you go along, they would have learnt new skills and start to make things muscle memory, and it's the same in public speaking.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to the questions now, because it's really easy for me to talk about this the whole time. All right, so I've got a question from Christy. So you've worked across academia, government labs, large-scale R&D departments and startups. What skills and knowledge have you found that's been complementary across all of these?
Communication. The ability to communicate to the people in the room has been crucial. And that's helped me succeed. I didn't realize it at the time because I'm not a good reader or writer. I didn't realize that my skill set of being able to just bring two objects and go, here's the thing in an object, is actually a really easy way to diffuse technical jargon and just show people what you mean. And so wherever I am, communication and being able to communicate to the people at the right level is definitely the skill set that I think has spanned across multiple agencies. And also learning what you're good at. I am not good at academia and I'm not good at government because there's so much bureaucracy, and I am like, I'm so not a bureaucrat. I hate forms. And so also learning what your skill set is and what you're good at. And the nice thing about now being a business owner is I can hire for all the things that I don't like. And I've learned that people love the things that I hate. And so you can bring joy to somebody's day in the thing that was always the dread at the end of your day. And so, yeah, figure out what your skill set is too, and how you can complement others is yeah, definitely the survival in business, wherever you are, is definitely my tip.
I really like how you've turned that. You mentioned that weakness for academia, and that all your weaknesses, you've kind of found a way to turn into kind of showcasing your strengths.
Yeah, and it's really easy when you're not good at something and it's expected of you in your job to think you're failing. And I definitely in academia felt like a big failure because I was just finding bits of it really hard. But academia expects you to do everything. It expects you to run your own books. It expects you to run your own lab. It expects you to be a manager of different types of people, students and postgrads. It expects you to be able to present and lecture, and it wants you to be great at everything. And I found the things that I wasn't good at were the things that I was focusing on, and I felt like I was a total failure. Whereas running a business now, I know what my skill set is and I know what I'm terrible at, and being able to hire for those bits that I'm not good at, so that as a company we thrive. It was a big learning curve for me to not think I'm a failure all the time, but to know what my strengths are and what my strengths aren't, and being able to build a diverse team.
And that's really kind of a very honest way of doing it. So actually being able to recognize that you need those other skill sets and not hiring people that are more aligned with how you think and how you do things, and understanding the value of having a wealth of different personalities. That's a great skill in itself.
Yeah, and then figure out how you can all work together, because obviously it's easy to set up a business and you're like, well, this is how I work, so this is how everybody should work, but we're really clear that everybody works differently. I, as an introvert, I don't put my hand up in meetings. I need time to process information. I need all the data before I go in. Whereas we have some great extroverts here who turn up, no prep, talk confidently in a meeting, and people will follow them if we're not careful. You might not necessarily have the best answer. So we have procedures in place now to make sure that everybody's heard.
Actually, just on data, trying to find a segue, there's a question here a little bit about what does your subscriber base look like?
Great question. So we currently have 79 countries, or families from 79 countries subscribe. Our biggest subscriber base is New Zealand, because we have a big fan base here. But we are in pretty much every country and all of the ones that we didn't know we would be in, which has been a challenge for a business because we do a lot of live events. We've had to think about the timing of the live and whether we run 2 or 3 lives in a day to make sure we can cross platforms. And the feedback has been incredible. And also our subscriber base has been unique in that we've had whole schools subscribe and do it together as a remote learning process, as well as individual parents subscribe. And lots of new people who didn't know our brand have subscribed because they saw it as a solution for lockdown versus just our normal subscriber fan base who tend to, subscribe to all the things we do. So it's been really diverse, and we have a lot of data coming from that around who's buying, how often they're using, and also we're able to track each customer, so we know how different customers are using it, whether they do an experiment every day as part of a structured learning plan or just one on a weekend so it lasts them the whole year. Yeah, so all over the place.
I'm thinking Nanogirl parties. We could use your little experiments and entertain the masses if we're trying to do it on a budget. Not that I'm cheap, but it could be a really great option.
Yeah, and I've been asked a lot to do Nanogirl parties and how to help parents plan for a science party, because a lot of kids want science parties. So that's definitely on our agenda. And we're trying to do it in a way that doesn't use lots of resources, because it's easy for you to buy a box and then do the box and then put the box on the side. We've always said, we want you to just look around you and see that science and engineering is everywhere. So how can you create, I'm going to show you one of the things we created. How can you create something out of waste? This is probably one of my favorite products. This is a disguise kit made out of a kitchen roll that we've cut, a piece of string and a bit of card. And what you can do is you can cut the kitchen roll up so that it fits your face like this. And then you can use the other side of the kitchen roll to mount on different disguises. So here we go. Here's my disguise today. It's so cheap. It's so simple. But we use this to teach kids about biometrics and how facial recognition works. And it's all about the distances. And we did that with literally stuff you would have thrown in a rubbish bin, which is a piece of card and a bit of kitchen roll and a piece of string. So it's hard to show you the value in things when you're not buying plastic products in boxes, but we really want families to think about how you can learn just using stuff at home.
Well, I've actually found that my own little boy, we made the paper airplanes and he played with it for hours. I bought him a toy and he used it for about 5 minutes and wanted a friend to play with. So I think the act of building it and creating something just makes them way more involved and interested in how they can play with it and the different things it can do.
And to be a creative. So there are lots of STEM boxes where you buy the STEM box and everything you need is in the box, but only to do the end result. So you build the thing and then you're built. Whereas what we say is, so here's an example. We took a tissue box and we teach you how to make a Newton meter and how your muscles work. But what you can do is, so you can measure on the metric and you can weigh something like a rock. But from that, you can go, well, could I build a bigger one or a different one, or what could I weigh differently? And what we want our kids to do is to look at things the next time they see a box that isn't a tissue box, but maybe a cereal box, go, well, could I have built one with a cereal box? And then maybe they build the same thing, but innovate and make it different next time. So we don't want our kids just to consume and buy one thing, but actually see themselves as creators and see that they can create literally using stuff that they have lying around that might have gone in the recycle bin, and rethink about, how can you reuse things? How can you adapt things? How can you make things better, bigger, faster? And traditional toys don't allow that tinkering. And that tinkering is what we as engineers do our whole lives.
Do you think this is then, so there's another question that's about what's the most rewarding part of your job? It sounds very much like you've already started going into that. So what are your thoughts on that one?
So one of the things with Nanogirl Labs with the subscription is there's a closed Facebook group page where parents who love their kids and boast about their kids show us what their kids are building and how their kids have made their stuff better than we could have ever have made it. And that's my favorite bit. My favorite bit is to see something that we've given instructions for, say, hey, go and build this. I'm watching kids build it way better than we would ever have built it, and modify it because they didn't have the right ingredients or they didn't have the right piece of string, and make it so much better than us. So for me, watching kids literally be the innovators they were born to be on my screen and seeing that happen in countries all over the world has been just delightful.
That's amazing. Sorry, I'm jumping around because I'm reading all the questions on screen. So there's some more that are popping up. So what other startups, businesses have been influential for Nanogirl? Have you been inspired by others such as A Mighty Girl, Gludibox, etc.?
Goldibox, yeah. And so there are lots of different things around STEM education in the market. And Goldibox is a great example. So Goldibox picked a niche, which is how do you get girls into engineering by building very specific products for girls. And when we saw them, they were quite pink. One of the things that we do at Nanogirl Labs is it's for everybody. Yeah, it has the word girl in the title, but that's because that's my superhero name. We get kids to think of their superhero name and become part of the superhero family. We were really clear from the start that we were gender neutral, and every single thing that we make is gender neutral. And we're not pitching to just girls or just boys. We're just pitching to kids and their families to be able to do stuff. From an inspiring point of view, look, I'm really lucky to have spent a little bit of time with people like Sir Richard Branson, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, Commander Chris Hadfield, real innovators in the space of science communication. And I know I just named 4 men, that's because I love women too, but these are people who have built real traction, and I talk to them about what works for them. And so Richard Branson is dyslexic, and so he was really clear that things that are hands-on and tangible that help people become creators is really important for empowering them. And again, Commander Chris Hadfield is very good at bringing basically space in the universe down to to be tangible for everybody to understand. And so I've been lucky to have role models like those in my life who have helped me to really think about what is it that people want. And people want things that they can touch and that they can modify and they can feel empowered by. And so that's sort of what I've been inspired by. But there are some great companies out there doing great things.
Yeah, I can really get a feel for some of the things that you've mentioned there. So actually, prior to seeing your talk, I'd went to another meetup and I'd learned about a thing called a microbit. I went a bit nuts for my son's birthday, I think for his 4th birthday, not that I'm a little bit of an overachiever, and bought a heap of things for that. And then I thought it would be really great if there's some communities or places that I could get to join up. So I know there's STEM education, holiday programs, but all of them are geared towards girls, which I support, but it would be nice to include my son in those things. Yeah, so it's great to hear that you tried to think about that when you were putting together Nanogirl.
And what's interesting is when we look at diversity, so if you look at other programs, the most popular program that is a gender neutral program is the Lego program, and they have 33% girls sign up to their subscriptions. We have 53% girls sign up to our subscription. So we're almost 50-50. And you do that by building diversity in mind with your product. And so we've never said this is for girls, we've never said this is for boys, we've said this is for everybody, as a lot of different STEM companies do. But what we've learned is by building that with positive role models who are diverse and making sure that everything we build fits for everybody, it's not colored a certain way, it's not designed for a certain niche. Actually, everybody comes. And so we feel really privileged. I think we're the highest diversity in a gender neutral STEM kit in the world. And we've just said everybody's welcome.
And I think as long as you've got an inclination towards superpowers, you'll love the Nanogirl platform. So my son actually goes through it and picks by superhero power that he'd like. So I encourage anyone to take a look. I'd actually say it's not just for kids. I'd probably have fun just building this stuff on the weekend, just with my friends. So I think especially spending so much time at home with COVID, it's been really good doing something that's more hands-on and you don't need to spend a lot of money to participate.
No, and so, and the important thing for us was making sure that every single experiment that we do in Nanogirl's lab comes with a parent cheat sheet, because we know that not every parent is a rocket scientist. And your kids will ask you the most bizarre questions. And so we said, here's probably what your kid's going to ask you. Here are all the answers. So you look like you're a professional rocket scientist today, or whatever it is that you're learning. Because we know that parents, are busy and maybe don't know the answers and feel a bit reluctant to try something if they're not sure about it. So yeah, every one of our experiments comes with a parent cheat sheet because life's hard enough.
It really is, and they ask a lot of questions. I think I might just show him where the feedback button is, and if you have voice activation, he can just ask Nanogirl anytime he has a question.
Yeah, and we get a lot of that.
All right, so I will continue with the questions. So what have you learned during the COVID period, and how will it affect the strategy for Nanogirl's Labs moving forward?
Yeah, great question. So before COVID, we were an international science theatre touring company. We were about to do our Australian tour through May, and then we were going to go do 6 weeks in the Middle East and then 2 months in the UK, returning back to New Zealand in October. That was our revenue for the whole year, and we lost our whole business before COVID in one day, where everybody cancelled, all live events were cancelled, we had to cancel our tickets, and suddenly our whole business model didn't exist. And so we learned very quickly during lockdown what our value proposition is and how to pivot so quickly to be able to provide that value proposition rather than through live theatre shows, but basically through shows that come straight to your home for you and your kids. We learned how to really quickly use our skills. So, as an ex-coder, I was able to, with my husband and my friends, go, all right, we're going to code a website, we're going to create a video platform, we're going to build a studio that we've never done before, and we're going to film content. We learned some new skills really quickly. We learned that you have to be agile and you have to move really quickly if you want to survive in business. And what we're sadly seeing is some of those larger corporations that either have infrastructure that is fixed or systems in place with a really big hierarchy, so you can't make these decisions quickly. We're really seeing them struggle right now, and it's a challenge. And so, yeah, we learned that being a relatively small business and having the confidence to just go big and go home and try something different and give it our all is probably key to our survival. And having a team that were willing to follow us and be like, who are you crazy people saying go this way when we were going that way? But they trusted in us, and yeah, it's worked.
It's great. Like, I particularly like the coding skills. So something that I always dabble in and haven't quite made it there yet with the coding. I definitely think it's great if you've got a various skill set that you can apply in these times and you don't need to rely on others. It's great that you had a team where you were really able to do that.
Yeah, and you don't have to, look, I was coding as a HTML coder from, the late 90s. My skill set is terrible. But by building websites with HTML in the 90s, I was able to understand what I needed. And so even if I wasn't coding it myself, I was able to communicate to those who could code to say, this is the type of platform we need. This is the expertise that we need. And I knew what to hire in on the day. And I think it's not about being the expert. It's about being across the technology enough that you know what decisions need to be made, and you can trust that the people who are doing it for you are the right people.
So I'm going to pivot now again, just because I like this question. Are you a superhero yet?
Am I a superhero yet?
Yeah.
I think that nobody really thinks they're a superhero yet, and we're always striving to get more superpowers. So not yet, but I'm working on some cool stuff. I'm looking at my desk here. There's always an experiment. This says do not touch. I'm making jelly eggs right now for a different experiment. If you've never made a jelly egg, it's quite fun. But this jelly egg is starting to grow bubbles, which is what I want it to do. I'm teaching about ocean acidification here, but it's an experiment that ends up being a bouncy egg that you can take the shell off and bounce. So I'm always looking for new superpowers. But yeah, no, I'm probably not one yet, but I'm on my way.
Sean has another question. So Sean's got quite a few questions on here. Shout out to Sean. So he had to Google kinesthetic-based learning. And that, how do you do this in the days of social distancing was his question.
So kinesthetic-based learning is just where you're hands-on. And so what we try to do at Nanogirl Labs is say, how do we teach you a concept by helping you build it? Because it's much easier if you can build it yourself. So so here we go. I've got an example here. We wanted to teach simple machines to kids. And so this was a tissue box. We put a rubber band on it, and then we put a toilet roll on the bottom. And this is a piece of milk bottle. And we wanted to teach the concept of simple machine. The easiest way to teach simple machines is to build a simple machine. And all you needed here was cardboard and a toilet roll and a milk bottle. Now what we did is made a straw out of paper. And when you rotate this, you can see that it pushes the straw, which opens the box. And then what we did was colored in the box, so it became a mouthpiece. So now when you roll this along the ground, it becomes a chatterbox. A very simple way. And this is probably an hour's worth of building. And as we teach you how to build this out of literally, again, a tissue box and a toilet roll, you're able to learn about how machines work, how levers work, how if you don't put the elastic band on, the thing flips open and it never shuts again. And for me, kinesthetic learning is taking people on a journey of taking junk and learning about motors. And this is a simple, sort of machine that you could then think about, well, how does your car piston work and how do other engine components work? And the easiest way to explain that, I could show you a picture of a car piston and you'd be like, I don't care. But if I got you to build this and then you get to run across the ground with it as it's chatting, for me, kinesthetic learning is making something an experience that you won't forget and making it fun and silly so that you go, oh, that time that I did that thing where I made the chatterbox mouth out of a tissue box, I can now understand how that would also help my car to work. So yeah, kinesthetic learning is how you just find junk to make things to help you understand a concept.
Basically making it fun.
Yeah, and hands-on, because our brains, I can tell you stuff theoretically and your brain might go, oh, I think I get that. But the experience of being hands-on uses a different part of your brain. And so it helps you to sort of store it in a different way.
It's just tying it back to when you mentioned about academia earlier. Actually, one of the things that I found hardest when I was studying was when I had to listen to people for a really long time and there wasn't enough interaction. So for me, the labs was the best part, but trying to learn from a textbook, super challenging.
Yeah. And when I was an academic, I used to split my 50-minute lectures into 5-minute blocks. So when I would design them, I'd be like 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, because we have really short attention spans. And I know when our university brought in online learning, there was a real kickback because people were like, well, the students won't come to our lectures if they can do it online. And I said, oh, I've seen absolutely no drop in my attendance because I've made my lectures engaging, and they know that I might set something on fire, or I might launch something at the audience. And that sense of engagement and interactivity in those 5-minute slots meant that there was a reason for them to come. And so I think the challenge is, if you think you're just going to lecture content, people can learn that anywhere. What you want to do is have people have experiences and remember how they felt during that time and help them sort of engage in it that way. So, you know, different academics teach in a different way, but I really wanted students to have an experience.
I kind of wish I'd went to your classes. Saying that, I might be in a different role to now, but if you ever decide to give it another crack, then I would definitely be interested. All right, so more questions for us. How do you come up with the projects for Nanogirl? I'm not sure if this is related to more of the product side or all the different activities that you take the kids through. So maybe talk about both.
Okay, I'll talk about both. So number one, I became an engineer because I was a tinkering kid. So I have a background in building stupid things out of lollipop sticks. So I wanted to take that concept. We have a great team here. We have a good team of PhDs and engineers who are all brainstorming around how do we build a concept or a lesson out of something that we know is really important to kids right now. So what we always go back to is how do we create innovative solutions that hit a need right now? And that need is always going to change. In COVID, the need was, how do we help kids who are home from school to keep learning STEM with the help of their parents when remote learning is the thing? But we've always been, what is our value proposition and how do we solve it in a unique way? One of my other products is the Kitchen Science Cookbook, which is a recipe book filled with recipes written like a recipe, only using kitchen things, but every recipe is a science experiment. And for us, the value proposition there was, how do I help parents who know cooking to realize that they're also scientists? Well, I'll give them the thing that they know, which is a recipe book with all the ingredients they know that they cook with, and I'll put a little bit of science at the bottom and go, you know these things, combine them together and you've made science. So for us, our value proposition is, how do we make sure that everybody everywhere realizes that they're a scientist or an engineer? And then how do they pass that information on to their kids? Because intergenerational fear is a real challenge. I see lots of mothers specifically who say to their daughters, I wasn't good at maths, so you don't have to be good at maths too. And immediately you've given them permission to not try. And what we want to do is go to those mothers and say, you are amazing at maths. You use it all the time in your life. You just don't call it that. How do you empower your daughter to realize that she's amazing at maths too? So yeah, we come up with ideas to say, where is the weak spot? Where are people losing confidence? And how do we empower them to feel like they are the scientists that they already are?
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I think I'm really conscious when I speak to my son about the language I use. Because if you project an opinion of yourself onto them, then they start to think that's real and maybe even take that onto themselves. So I think giving parents that confidence and kind of like a support on how they can do more with their kids. I mean, I personally love to give River a little bowl of something and just let him pretend he's baking so that I actually have him distracted doing something else. So I can focus. So I think definitely that will be on my purchase list from Amazon. So maybe I'll make that his birthday present.
And again, the Kitchen Science Cookbook was a concept. We wanted to do this, and for everyone that we sell, we donate one to a family who can't afford it. And that's been so empowering for us to have families say, I would never have been able to afford a beautiful book. But now I have it, and it's so precious in our family, and we do these things together as a family. So for us, the book was just a way that we could get into people's homes and get into everybody's homes and empower them to have great quality family time. And that's sort of what we want to do.
I really love this vision that you have for the work that you're doing and how you try to involve everyone. It's really inspiring. And I know I'm talking for quite a few people that are on here watching right now, and other people who aren't, who are potentially asleep in the UK or in other countries, definitely. So, while I've got you here, I just want to say that, we salute you for the work that you're doing for us as parents and making sure that we involve in our children and things.
Thank you. And it's come from experience, right? My parents didn't have any qualifications. They had no way of building confidence with me academically, but but we were poor growing up, and so I learned how to fix things. And nobody said learning how to fix things because you're poor is a skill that is actually really useful. What everybody said is, oh, you're a slow reader and writer at school, so you're not going to go very far. And so for me, I'm really passionate about helping success be measured in different ways, and for our kids not to be labeled as something, but to learn what their skills are and be able to take those out into the world.
Yeah, the generation are definitely more lucky now that I think people are getting a different dimensional view of learning and catering for different learning aptitudes. You know, not everybody's a reader, not everybody, but then again, not everybody is tactile. So understanding how you can get everyone across it is great. All right, I'm gonna reach back to the question. So do you have any parallel products, we've mentioned some, that are unrelated to Nanogirl Lab? And I'll link this up as well with what is the distant future of nanotech?
Yeah, so we have the Kitchen Science Cookbook as a parallel product that's not a Nanogirl Labs product. Look, I have been a nanotechnologist for 20 years, and so a lot of my technologies that I've helped co-create, you know, are in all of the things that you're touching and using. If you have an iPhone right now, you know, there's a lot of technology in there that, you know, as an engineer, I was part of working on and mostly breaking, because I'm a fracture mechanics engineer, so I break tiny things. And so what was really nice about that and working for big, fast-moving industries in the high-tech sector was seeing commercialization and understanding how commercialization works. And I think that was really useful for what I'm doing now, which is creating products and beautiful experiences to help empower whole generations of families to have quality time where they're learning. And we call it edutainment, learning together but having fun. Yeah, so it's there's been a lot of things. Nanotechnology is going to be, you know, it's one of the core things that's helping COVID right now. We're thinking about how do you create nanotech surface. So nanotechnology, by the way, is just a size scale. So surfaces with tiny features on, or chemical units that have a high surface to area ratio that are virus resistant, for example, or that can dehydrate the virus so it kills it very quickly. But also if we're looking at how vaccines are being created, a lot of that is around nanotechnology. A virus itself is so tiny, it's considered to be the nanoscale. So this whole COVID thing has got me really fascinated into whether I can go back and use some of my previous technologies, because my technologies recently that I was creating were hydrophobic and icephobic solutions, which means that surfaces where water can't stick or ice can't stick. And those actually tend to also be antimicrobial and antiviral. And so I am sort of in my spare time thinking about using my science technology for good around COVID and some other things to help us in future pandemics.
So this is moving away. This question's moving away, but it's interesting, from Greg. So Greg has a question about monetization. And what have been the most effective monetization methods you've tried, allowing you to stay on your mission full time?
Yeah, so monetization is a really hard part of business, asking people for money and trying to understand what the value proposition is. And we've done different monetization. So the Kitchen Science Cookbook, for example, was first a self-published product. We did a Kickstarter, we raised enough to print it, we flew to China, we did all the things, we printed a lot of books to the point where all the publishers that we tried to get to publish it initially, who said it's never going to fly, nobody wants a science book that you do in the kitchen, all came to us and said we want to buy the rights for it. And so our monetization has been create beautiful products that we know people love, and we have a fan base who will probably support it. But then think about licensing and IP around it. So we've always been really clear with all of the things that we make that there's a potential to license it, because the advantage of license it, especially with hardware like books take up space, they're heavy, you don't want to put a sticky postage label on them all. How do you get partners involved and have a long-term relationship? So we've been able to license the Kitchen Science Cookbook in pretty much every country around the world. We have big licensing agreements with Penguin, but also we've created the TV show for it, we've licensed that. And so monetization isn't always about what is the product that you can sell to others, but also about what is your IP and how do you license that to bring in less money, but give it bigger scale so it has bigger reach, and therefore you can maybe get more revenue from that. So always think about how you're going to distribute what it is that you're producing.
Those are some great points, I think. And if you look, we had Netflix speaking on another event earlier, which I would say you could probably say they've thought about those kind of parameters a lot. All right, let's go for another one. So I know you've done some work in getting disadvantaged communities, cultures into tech. Can you elaborate on techniques that you've used to get these communities engaged? This question's from Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony, we're very human-centric here, so there is no one solution for all. We build different products, and we're about to do some really big projects across the Pacific Islands around engaging different communities. So what we say is when you're working with disadvantaged communities, there is no one fixes all challenge. So here in New Zealand, our Indigenous community, the Māori community, are really disengaged sometimes around STEM, and we wanted to create a co-create production of how do you engage Māori kids and their whānau, their family, into learning about science and technology. And the thing is, Māori have always been scientists. They just haven't used the word science. And they've used this concept called Mataronga Māori, which is understanding the earth and how it works. And Western people just haven't used that. And so what we wanted to do is say, we know that these two communities are coming together. How do we bring both communities together in a way that's bilingual, but actually respects the knowledge that have come from both cultures together? And so we created a live science show called Matatoa, which is a bilingual show. We taught it around New Zealand, especially to remote disadvantaged communities, to say, here's your story, and here's our story, and here's how they've worked together, and here's the languages coming together. So building things together is really important. We also did a project in Fiji with the girls who live in the squatter settlement, so very, very poor young girls, and we taught them STEM. They came to our camp, but we taught them STEM that was relevant to them and their challenges. So one of the challenges these squatter settlements have is solar panels are the only electricity source that they have, and they've been brought in by an NGO, but they break really quickly, and then the NGO never comes back to fix them. And so we were teaching these 11-year-old girls about electricity and circuits, but then we said, well, let's teach you how to fix your solar panel. And suddenly in the village, these girls became the experts. So whenever somebody's solar panel broke, they were like, where is my 11-year-old girl? How do I empower her to come here and fix this for me? And they almost, the dynamics of the village changed, where the most valued people in their community were 11-year-old girls who had been on the STEM camp and now had the engineering skills to fix some of the challenges within these very poor squatter settlements. So for us, we always go in first. We live with the community, we co-create with the community, and we always leave people behind in the community who are trained. So in Fiji, we have 11 instructors who are fully trained in our methods, who are continuing to do this when we're not there. So it takes a lot of time, but you have to, if this is what your passion is, and it's what my passion is, you have to work with the communities side by side for a long period, and then leave behind your knowledge and your expertise locally to be able to do that. And yeah, we're about to do that in several other Pacific nations too.
I think it's really fantastic to hear you talk about how you're making it useful. So you're not just, you're taking it to them, you're making it useful. You're thinking about what's going to motivate them to learn and make them interested. It's definitely the way I think that more people need to take note of how they can engage with different communities.
Yeah, and it's scalable from how we build it, but it's not scalable from you can't just put it everywhere. You really have to spend time working with the people that you want to work with and co-create something. You can't come in and say, we're going to fix this for you, let us show you, and then leave. Like we've seen so many times how that hasn't worked. And I wanted to create a different model and a sustainable model.
Yeah, it's taken it back to, so for the product community that are out there listening to this, having segments, targeting, changing your approach for each of those segments, and really linking back to your core values and your core principles of what your product's trying to achieve.
Yeah, and they're still your customer, right? What does your customer need and what do they have?
Excellent. Right, here we go. So I'm scrolling up and down in case people wonder what I'm doing. Okay, so what's the most interesting thing you broke?
So many things. Oh man, I've broken a lot of things. I've lost companies a lot of money too in the process. I don't know how many of you how many can I talk about? I once was trying to create a product for a large pharmaceutical company, and I thought it was the bee's knees, and it probably cost them $3 million in me breaking it and actually not doing enough research behind the scenes. I can't tell you what it is because you'll know who they are. But yeah, I've made some big boobs in my life, really big ones that have cost me jobs too. And part of that was naivety and not understanding, thinking, you know, when you're early, it's really easy when you have early success, because you're like, well, obviously I'm the expert and I know all of the things, and the arrogance I had when I was younger, because I was really successful quickly, but I was only successful, I didn't realize at the time, because all these other grown-ups were opening doors for me because I was the young new thing, being like, here's the chances. And I was like, obviously I got here because I'm epic. You learn pretty quickly that you don't get there because you're amazing. You get there because other people are trying to help you. And so I crashed and burned quite young with quite a few things that I broke. Yeah, so.
Really entertaining. I won't relate back to any of the things that I've potentially done as well. I think I'll just quickly move on to the next question. Here's a more personal one. So what are you doing when you're not working, and how do you manage such a busy schedule?
When I'm not working, I like to be in Perth kite surfing. I'm just saying, Perth is probably my favorite place to come kite surfing, and they usually come every year with West Tech Fest. So I'm a kite surfer. I love being in the ocean. Balance is hard. And you have to prioritize it. And I'm going to admit, in lockdown, I did not balance well at all, because we were trying to obviously save our company. And so my balance has not been where I want it to be. But usually, one of the things I commit to every year is I travel to an exotic place somewhere in the world for 2 weeks with my girlfriends. Last year, we went to the Atlas Mountains and lived with the indigenous Berber women in the Atlas Mountains. The year before, we climbed Kilimanjaro. And so I usually set aside 2 weeks in my year where I'm totally off all technology and I'm doing something crazy like climbing a massive mountain. And that's my big switch off. And then, yeah, I'm a kite surfer, I'm an outdoor person, so trying to schedule time for myself. But I'm going to admit, I don't do it all the time when things get busy. And now is probably a time that I'm actually quite terrible at it.
Do you see any light in the end of the tunnel where you might be able to?
I do, I'm so ready. I just want, when's the Trans-Tasman border opening? Because I want to come back to Perth. So I've got a group of kite surfing friends who keep talking to me about, you know, doing some Western Australia kite surfing and going to a place called Coral Beach. And they keep sending me photos of, and it's so beautiful, but we have to wait for the borders to open.
Well, if we're lucky, that'll happen soon, I guess.
I hope so.
It's definitely windy enough. So let's see what else we've got here. So there's something from the YouTube chat. AJ Wilson asks, 5G is topical. What are your thoughts on this and the part education plays?
Yeah, 5G is really topical, and we saw the same, but not as big with 4G. So there's a lot of controversy about 5G. I've heard people write to me all the time saying, Michelle, don't you know we're being guinea pigs? They haven't tested it. We have tested it. I haven't found any scientific evidence, and I've watched this YouTube video telling me 5G is terrible. They are beautifully created YouTube videos, but actually the science is quite false in them. And so I think the challenge we have right now is it's very easy to consume information from social media and from YouTube and not know where the sources have come from and the science behind it. And the reason being is that I don't think most people know how their phones work. And so if you don't know how your phone works, it's really hard to understand what 5G is. And if you talk about things at a higher frequency, they sound dangerous because high frequency usually means bigger. But with 5G, high frequency means lower penetration, meaning it's less likely to get into your skin. And so I think one of the challenges we have, and I've been talking to a lot of students at different ages about critical thinking and where they learn that. And they've been talking about, well, we don't learn critical thinking at school. It's maybe something that our parents teach us. And with the rise of social media and the ease of being able to get whatever information you want in your bubble to you, I really worry about things like anti-vax and 5G suddenly becoming shared in a really easy to consume way, even if the information is false. And I've written a lot of stuff about 5G, what we know about it, what research has been done on it, where all the research is. Part of the challenge is boring researchers like me, we write boring research papers about 5G, but we don't call it 5G because we're just talking about, you know, electromagnetic spectrums. And we put it behind a firewall in a peer-reviewed academic paper that nobody can read because it's filled with jargon. And so if you're looking for that information, you don't go here. You go to a YouTube video that's beautiful and is easy to understand. And you might not necessarily know where that information has come from. So I'm actually really worried about the future of some of these new technologies. And we've seen it, right? The burning down of cell phone towers because of 5G, because people are really afraid of a technology that they don't necessarily understand. And I think we really need to work much harder on communicating how science is done, where it's done, who it's done by, and what evidence we have in a way that is as beautiful as some of these YouTube conspiracy theories that I've been seeing.
What's fascinating is I don't remember anything happening like this for 4G. So
there was definitely stuff for 4G, but and there were these little stickers with that no 4G through, but it was part of very closed groups. I think social media now has really, there's been the rise of social media where it's much easier to make your own videos and put it out there. And there's almost a fear of technology coming as we start to create new technologies that can scare some people. So I definitely saw it in 4G, but it was nothing like it is with 5G.
So I'm just conscious of time now, Michelle, and I think we've actually done a really good job in answering most of the questions. I can't see any that we've missed. And I know that you have something to show us. So what I thought I could do was just quickly wrap up and say thank yous. And then we could leave with you showing us your really cool thing. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
So just before Michelle goes, I'd really like to give a big shout out to Michelle herself for joining us here in ProductTank Perth. And I'd like to thank our sponsors as well for continuing to support the work that ProductTank does here in Perth. So big shout out to Journey One, to Health Engine, to SciTech, and to Hatch, and all of my co-organizers and additional friends who keep posting all about this on LinkedIn. So thank you. Michelle, feel free to take it away with your...
Thank you. And thank you, sponsors. We can't do this without you. Everybody asks me to do this all the time, and I don't know why, but they do. So I'm going to do it. Here we go. I've just put some soap in some water. I'm going to add a little bit of gas here, flammable gas. And people always want to see me set myself on fire for some weird reason. So if this was you who requested me setting myself on fire, let's see if I can do this with matches rather than not with matches. Here we go. This is how we do this in science. Don't do this at home, kids.
Wow. I don't know if I'm going to show my kid that later.
Don't show your kids that at all.
All right, Michelle, well, thank you very much. Everyone, enjoy the rest of World Product Day and feel free to reach out to us if you have any thoughts on this event. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Donna.
Take care.